Okay, I'll go ahead and mute everybody. And I'll say again at the end, but I just want to say that I will be out of town for the next 2 Tuesdays. We're going to go to Florida for the Thanksgiving week to see our daughter and her family in their new home and to be there for Thanksgiving and the first 2 days of Hanukkah. So I'm really excited, but we don't get home until late Tuesday night, whatever that date that is, I think the 30th. So we'll get together in December. It'll already be December, which is really crazy. I also want to announce that our women's trip to Israel, which has been postponed a number of times, is now looking extremely promising for February 14th through the 24th. We have 3 places open on in our group, and I would love to talk to anybody about it who would like to come. Kathy is coming, and a number of other women who get to learn with, and it should be really fun. And mostly it's so long awaited that everybody is, I think, excited. Because what is it, Kathy? I think, is this our 4th time to reschedule? 5th time, and 5 is the charm. So I just read even today that Israel is opening up even more, that they're really trying to make things easier for us all to come. So please let me know if you'd like to join me on this trip. Our theme is claiming our inheritance of resilience, reconnection, and renewal, which I think is totally appropriate for the times that we have all been through. I said to our group when we met, I don't even remember when that was, in September, August, that people always come up with themes for events, but usually you don't really feel like the theme is lived out completely. And this theme of resilience, reconnection, and renewal, I think we are living each and every word, and we're really looking forward to a fabulous trip going from the north of Israel down to the final night. We'll be at a spa at the Dead Sea before we head back to Denver or wherever people are coming from. And please let me know if you'd like to come. This is also open to mothers and daughters. So Daisy and Tamara, if you'd like to come on this together, that would be really fun. And it's open to people who are not living necessarily in Denver. So I hope that you, if you yourself can't come, but if you know somebody who you think would be good to come with me, please let me know. We're going to try to kind of fill these last few spots in the next couple of weeks so that we can get our group all together. All right, that's my announcement. And hello, Della. Nice to see you. Since we won't be together for Hanukkah, I wanted to do something about Hanukkah and about women. And I call this filling in the gaps, the rest of the story. And what I'd like to talk about is, first of all, there's so many misconceptions about Hanukkah, not the least of which is that people say it's a minor holiday. That is not true. It's minor and major in Jewish law have to do with the restrictions, halachic restrictions around Shabbos. So a holiday that has the same restrictions as Shabbos in the category of, not kindling a fire, doing any of the creative efforts, labors, those are called major holidays like Shabbos, Sukkot, Pesach, Sukkot. Those are major holidays. And minor holidays, as my friends would say, that's where you can drive. So you always say, that's your first question. Can you do whatever you want holiday or not? So Hanukkah and Purim, because they do not have those restrictions, are called minor holidays. However, they are considered quite major in their significance, their importance, their relevance, and their meaning for us. The other thing that has happened to those holidays, specifically Purim and Hanukkah, is they have been victimized, the victim of, I will call it, people use this term in a way that I think is a little strange, but I will say cultural appropriation, meaning that the holidays have taken on cultural, I don't know what, cultural things that have nothing to do with the holiday and have everything to do with the cultures in which we have found ourselves. So Purim has become a child's holiday, complete with a beauty pageant, which we'll talk about it. Purim is totally not what it was all about. And Hanukkah has been turned into, and people say, oh, it's like the Jewish Christmas. People aren't even sure what they're doing with it. They don't know what it is. They light the menorah. Thankfully, a lot of people celebrate Hanukkah, which is wonderful. It really is great. And now it's time for us to discover what's going on behind the scenes, and specifically about the role of women in creating that holiday. And I hope it'll bring more meaning to you and any other women in your family as you share more about it. So when we're going to learn more about this, I want to kind of set the stage by saying, because when people hear about the rest of the story, they're always like, well, I never learned this in Sunday school. No one ever taught me. I think people are just like against women. They just don't like stories about strong women, and people have a lot of kind of issues that they bring up. But I want to offer, having been a very devoted Sunday school and Hebrew school attendee, I happen to be one of those weird people who loved it. I don't know, I just got to see Jewish kids and Jewish friends, so I thought it was great. But I ask you, if you look back on your own days growing up in Hebrew school or Sunday school, if you did grow up with that, were your teachers Torah scholars? Or were they some parent or somebody that the board and the education committee roped into being willing to teach kids after school or on Sunday mornings for the most part? I mean, bless their hearts, anybody who did this job. My mom did it. I did it. People I love and respect did it. But people weren't teaching from a very broad base of knowledge. Plus, we have to also understand that we are Holocaust survivors, whether we survived directly or not. And the Jewish people have been spending a lot of time just surviving and trying to get themselves back on track. And you just kind of do the bare minimum when you're trying to get people back on track. So we lost a lot of people, we lost a lot of connection, and we lost a lot. So now it's time to reclaim it and get the rest of the story. But it's not because anybody was holding out on us, it's because they didn't know, and they didn't know because they didn't have the background, they didn't have the knowledge. When you're escaping from the Cossacks, you just don't have a chance to review all of your sources. That's just the way it is. So now there's no excuse. Now it's time for us to have the rest of the story. So that's what I'd like to share with you. And it's going to be based on two interesting halachas for Hanukkah. One of them is that when the Hanukkah candles are lit, once they are lit, the women are not supposed to do any work while they are burning. Women are supposed to relax during the time while the candles are lit. Now, if you have an oil menorah where the flame lasts for several hours, you could get away with that, but most people do like a half hour, because that's about how long candles last. It's about a half hour, 25 minutes, a half hour of women not doing any work. So this sounds a little bit like Rosh Chodesh, where Rosh Chodesh, the celebration of the new month, is also especially focused on women. And women are not supposed to do any heavy work on Rosh Chodesh. It's a little mini yenta for us. So just remember, tell your friends and family at home that it's a yenta for you, and you don't need to do any work. So the same thing is true for Hanukkah. So we have to ask why. Why is that true for women? The second question that's also related is that, and we're not going to have a discussion about the halachic issues about men and women, but just so we know, just to frame this conversation, is that women are not obligated in what are called time-bound mitzvahs. All women are obligated in the thou shalt nots, but if you shall do something, if it's a time-bound mitzvah, which means that it occurs because a certain time has come, like it's Hanukkah, it's time to light candles, women are exempt from that. Normally, women are exempt. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but you're not obligated. And when we say obligated, we mean must do. So women normally are not obligated in time-bound mitzvot, except they are obligated in lighting Hanukkah candles. And this is an exception. So I want to share with you the sources for that, but then we have to ask the question, why? What is it that makes the women different, that we see this on the obligation to light, as well as this special treatment while the lights are burning? Okay, has anybody heard anything about this or have any insight, knowledge, or anything about this? Okay. All right. So we didn't learn this in Sunday school, right? Okay, good. I mean, not good, but that means that we have something to learn now. Okay. So it says that this is in Masechet Shabbat, which is part of the Talmud, Shabbat, page 23a. It says women are obligated in Hanukkah candles since they were part of the miracle. Without this, they would be exempt since it's a positive time-bound commandment. And even though this Hanukkah candle lighting is a rabbinic law, it was established with the same principle of biblical laws. So it says they were part of the miracle. So if you were trying to understand, what would your first thought be that they were part of the miracle? What does that mean to be part of the miracle? Anybody have any thought, idea of what that might mean, to be part of it? What does it mean to be part of it? Daisy. Oh, okay. I see one of yours is okay.
Maybe something with the lighting of the oil.
Okay, so you might think then, because we have two main miracles, right, for Hanukkah that we are celebrating. We celebrate the oil lasting for the 8 days rather than one. In that case, the oil was the menorah was lit by the Kohanim. So we wouldn't have. However, you might think, well, maybe we had something to do with the oil itself. Maybe it was a woman who found it, or maybe whatever. So that would be something. And the other was the military battle. Now, what names have you heard of go with the military battle? Who was in charge of that? Who were the heroes that maybe you've heard of before? Or at least
Maccabees.
The Maccabees, right? Anybody hear the Maccabees? Judah the Maccabee, that's where, okay, and his father was Matisyahu, just like the singer, Matisyahu, that is Judah the Maccabee. There were 5 brothers who were the Maccabee brothers who led the revolt. They were Kohanim, they were priests, and they led the revolt. Those are the people that we associate with it, the dedication of the menorah with the oil and the fighting with the Maccabees. So that doesn't sound like necessarily a role for the women, like where are the women coming in on this? We don't really hear about that. But now we're going to hear about how the battle got started. So one of the things that we don't pay a whole lot of attention to, because that kind of makes it challenging, is that the Syrian Greeks did not want to kill the Jewish people. They just didn't want us to observe Judaism. You're welcome to stay alive, just don't be so Jewish. Be Greek. And there were a lot of Jews who were up for that, and they were called Hellenists. The Hellenizing system was what the Hellenists did, the Greeks did, as they conquered different peoples, different religions. They were like, we don't want to kill you, we just want you to be Greek, and just adapt and adopt those practices. So the Hellenists were Jews who were assimilated, and it ended up being kind of a 3-way fight, which was the actual Syrian Greeks, the Hellenists, and the observant Jews. Judah the Maccabee was in the observant Jew part of it. The win of Hanukkah basically kind of put it somewhat of an end to the Hellenizing experience of the assimilation of the Jewish people, and kind of brought them back and purified their approach and got them back on track. The question is, what started the war? The Syrian Greeks, again, they were not killing anybody. They were outlawing. You couldn't observe Shabbat, you couldn't have circumcision, you couldn't observe Rosh Chodesh, you couldn't study Torah. Those were the prohibitions, but that's okay. Okay, but why, what caused the battle? Does anybody know, how did the battle start? Like, what was the precipitating event? Does anybody have any knowledge of that? Etta?
No knowledge, just a feeling. Was it about circumcision?
Okay, so you would think, I wish it would have been about that, but no, it wasn't about the circumcision. So interestingly, there were Jewish men who wanted to be Greek and participate in the gymnasiums where people exercised in the nude, because the Greeks worshiped the form of the human body. And they felt circumcision was a a complete disaster of something to do to the human body. So Jewish men who wanted to be part of that tried to reverse the circumcision. So just note to self, circumcisions are not reversible. So men ended up in incredible pain, and I think even died from the effort of trying to do that. So it doesn't work, but they tried. So good guess. That's a good guess. You would think that would be something. I had heard growing up that there was something about bowing down to an idol, and that one of the Maccabees then attacked one of the Syrian Greek Hellenists, and that's how the battle started. But our sages actually say something different, and it was in the hands of women. Okay, so the women were the people who galvanized the Jewish people and also helped directly in the military battle. So that's what we want to learn about today, people you haven't heard of before. So who is that? So Rashi, commenting on this section of the Talmud of 23a, says they were in the very miracle. First, the Greeks decreed that all virgins who were to be married would have relations with the tafser, which is like the local governor, first. And B, through the hand of a woman, the miracle took place. Like, okay, what's that? So what's the tafser? What is the tafser, and what was that? What was that? This is something, and in Latin, it's called jus primae noctis, which means the right of the first night. And what the rule was that the anybody who was getting married on the wedding night, the bride had to submit to a sexual assault from the local governor, and he had the right of first action on her. Basically, she was raped on her wedding night. And that was the rule. Every single girl who got married, that's what it was. And guess what? Nobody did anything. Because what are you going to do? I mean, really, what are you going to do? And think about the psychology of it too. Even today, when there's so much attention on any kind of sexual abuse or any of these kinds of assaults, it's not that the person who this happens to should be embarrassed or ashamed, but it is embarrassing and shaming that on your wedding night, this is what happens to you. And so everybody just kind of, well, they're not killing us, so, just don't rock the boat. Until the 5 Maccabee brothers had a sister, and her name was Hannah. And Hannah was getting married, and she was getting married, and she was in a prominent family, and she was marrying somebody in a prominent family, and they were celebrating her wedding. And she asks them, the people who are there, how that can they be joyous knowing that she will soon be violated by the Greek general on her wedding night? And then it says this incited Yehuda, Judah the Maccabee, to begin the revolt. Now that's a very, how shall we say, PG-13 version of what happened, of what Hannah did. So here's the rest of the story. First of all, we never heard this story. Like, we didn't hear this story. This is not a story you tell in Sunday school. I'm not sure what you even do with it. Like, what are you supposed to do with that? But we didn't hear this. But here's the discussion. Here's the description. And actually, you can read this on the Chabad website on chabad.org about Hanukkah and about Hannah and what she did. So it describes it as follows. Amidst the elegant flowers, soft music, and the conversations of the guests, now this was a huge wedding. This wasn't like some little chuppah in the backyard, because this is one that the society pages, the society reporters were there. The bride suddenly stood up, walked to the center of the room, placed her hand on her chest, and tore open her gown, exposing her bare body. Shocked, angry, and embarrassed, her brothers rose to drag her from the room. But she stood firmly in place and addressed the room. You who are so zealous that you would kill me, for embarrassing you all, are not zealous enough to protect me from the hands of the Greek governor, who will come here to assault me tonight. Did you not learn from Shimon and Levi, the brothers of Dinah, who, though only 2 men, killed the entire city of Shechem for her sake? Place your faith in the one above, and he will help you. And so begins the battle. So that night, they convince instead of just the governor, they convince a higher up person that since Hannah is so prominent, it's like somebody even higher should get to be with her. And so she goes to him, and then the brothers come in and they kill the head person, and that starts the battle. So it was Hannah who mobilizes them, does something incredibly extreme and brave, and calls them out on how are you letting this happen? And then she calls on them and gives them who they should be acting like. Shimon and Levi, 2 people took out an entire city, and you're not standing up and doing anything. And that is what motivates them. So I just want to back up and talk about, when we talk about Hanukkah, what's the miracle of the oil is that they found oil, and it was only enough, the pure oil was only enough to last for 1 night, but it lasts for 8. So here's an interesting halachic, piece of information. They didn't need pure oil for the menorah. One of the halachas of the menorah is that you don't have to have pure oil to light it. So what's the big deal? So use whatever oil you can find. There was other oil, get some other oil. No, they wanted it to be pure. So why did they want it to be pure? If you think about what they were actually celebrating was the purification, because the definition of purity is where there's not admixture in, where it is pure. That was the problem with the Jewish people, who had an admixture of these Greek values that had gotten kind of attached and kind of discombobulated in Judaism. It's like, this needs to be pulled out. That was happening literally in the Jewish homes, with the Greeks violating the Jewish women and then literally violating the homes of the Jewish people by doing this, is like, it's so disgusting. And we know that literally in the temple, in the Holy of Holies, they turned it into a pigsty. There was feces, excrement, disgusting, disgusting things. It wasn't like, it was just schmutzy. It was disgusting. So the whole idea is about purification. So it's true, the oil didn't have to be pure, but what they were celebrating was the purification of getting rid of this and purifying people's intent, including this purification of the Jewish women being able to maintain their spiritual, physical purity, and therefore of the Jewish home, because the woman is the essence of the home. So a violation of the woman is a violation of the home, is a violation of the Beit HaMikdash. It's all just mini or it's either small or big versions of the same thing. So it's interesting, as an aside, that the mitzvah of lighting the Hanukkah menorah is on the house, not on the person. Okay, it's the house that has the menorah. So if you go to somebody's house and you're going to spend the night there, you light your menorah at their house because that's your house for the night. Unlike Shabbos, you light candles where you're going to eat. You can light the candles there, but with Hanukkah, it's where you're going to sleep. Heta.
I just wondered at the word Hanukkah and Chana.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. I hadn't thought of that, but yes, very good. So Chana, which interestingly, we know, and someone asked me, is this the same Chana who prayed for the son for Shmuel? And it's like, no, it's a different Chana. However, the name Chana is considered an acronym for the 3 mitzvot of women. And the 3 mitzvot of women are the lighting of candles, Neirot, the Challah, I should go in order, the Chet of Challah, the Nun is actually Nida, the laws of family purity, and the Hay is Hadlakas Neirot, of the lighting of candles. So Chana stands for that, and Chana is in the word Chanukah, and Chain, the root of Chana is Chain. Chain is grace. Okay, so it's like that's what it means. Like somebody has chain, that's what it means. Chanukah means to dedicate. It also means to educate. So the word chinuch is education, and Chanukah is like a Chanukah Habayit, is a dedication of the house. So in Hanukkah, we're kind of bringing all of this together And we're celebrating the purification, literally the purification, and getting this yucky stuff out and having the purity in, so that the Jewish people can regain their spiritual equilibrium. And Chana is the one who motivates, and she's calling on past ancestors. It's like, what's your problem? I mean, I can't imagine. And she was the one to do it. As the sister of the most prominent people of the community, in a time, she could have had a private conversation with her brothers. I don't think it would have had the same impact. You do something publicly like that, and sometimes you have to make a scene. And I'm not saying that that's always, at your next confrontation to, rip open your clothes, but it does mean to stand up, and that she knew exactly what to say. So the Jewish women are known for being able to see the situation and to inspire. And even if it's like with a hammer, to inspire those around them to do what needs to be done. Really amazing, really amazing. So that is about, that's about Chana. Now there was another event as well, which is the battle was very difficult battle. And in fact, there's different opinions about how many of the 5 brothers were actually killed during the battle. And it was very up and down. The Syrian Greeks were the military might of the time. They had military elephants, which were huge elephants. They were really the tanks of the time, because the people, they were so protected. And the Jews were like, little guerrilla warfarers kind of darting around like with nothing, trying to go to do battle. So on the side of the Jewish people, one would have to be, it was a little bit irrational. It was a little bit irrational to go to war against the Syrian Greeks. I have to say, nobody would look at this from a military perspective and say, well, this is a good idea. It's basically like, you've got to be kidding. This is a suicide mission. And in fact, in some of the cases, that's exactly what it was. So we're not really into suicide missions unless everything is at stake. And in this case, everything was at stake. So it's not that they were cowardly. It's just they didn't have the perspective that Chana offered them. And when she did that, she was able to galvanize them to take action. And so they did. Because you could say, kind of suffice and say, you know what? And think about Jewish people around the world throughout time. As long as they're not killing us, let's just not rock the boat. Okay, so they don't want us to wear a kippah in public. They don't want us to have kosher food. They don't want us to celebrate Shabbos. They don't want us to eat matzah. They don't want us to do this. Okay. At least they're not killing us. And the Jewish people have a very low threshold of what we consider a problem. And we value life above everything. So as long as they're letting us live, you know what? This too shall pass. We don't need to make such, we can't. Plus, who are we? We are unarmed, little mini nobodies. And the people, the Maccabees, they were Kohanim, they're used to may God bless you and keep you. That's their thing. And they're going to be out there waging war. What do they know about it? Nothing. So it wasn't crazy that they were not motivated to do something, but they needed something that would kind of take them to the next level. And Chana was the one. It's like, you have to, because this is in a way, as we know, there are some things that are worse than death. And the violation that was happening to every single Jewish woman who was getting married. Can you imagine starting off your life like that? Can you imagine going to your wedding? I'm surprised actually that people were still getting married. Honestly, why would you get married if you knew that's what you were going to have to submit to? Be like, you know what? I think we won't be getting married. But there was always such a drive to form Jewish families, because that is the bedrock of the Jewish people. So we're doing that no matter what. And if we have to put up with this other thing, okay. The Syrian Greeks were not alone in having this approach of violating women on their wedding night. You think like, why should you violate somebody else on a different night? Like, why the wedding night? So part of it was to not only to break the spirit of the Jewish people, which certainly would do that, and it did, but to also mingle. They were trying to create something. So if you have relations on your wedding night with both the Greek governor and your husband, then who's the child that gets conceived that night? Whose child is it? So now in Jewish law, if the mother's Jewish, you're Jewish. So we don't really care who the father, no, we don't care who the father was. We don't really care who the father was from a Jewish perspective. Who the mother is what counts. On the other hand, it does dampen the situation to not know who the father was, and for the father to not know if he was the father. It just makes it I just can't imagine the pain that the relationships are then infused with. It was an attack of the most intimate space. So it's interesting when we talk about the violation of the Holy of Holies in the Beit HaMikdash, which is where the menorah was right outside that, because in a home, the parent's bedroom is called the Holy of Holies. And so a violation of both of those places, the macro level of the Beit HaMikdash and the micro level of the husband-wife relationship was violated. So that's what we have going on. And we have Hannah, who's on the inside, who basically forces everybody to respond. And she galvanizes them, and that's how the attack begins. Now, during the warfare, it kind of went up and down, and there were periods of people being, giving up, which you can understand, losing heart, which you can understand. And then there was another woman whose name was Yehudit or Yehudis. And Yehudit, it says here, and this is in the Sechet Shabbat on page 10a. And by the hand of a woman, the miracle was done, as it says in the Midrash, that Yehudis, the daughter of Yochanan, fed cheese to the head of the enemy to inebriate him, and she cut off his head, and everyone fled. And because of this, it is customary to eat cheese on Hanukkah. So I don't know if you knew that it's customary to eat cheese. It's not just on Shavuos, it is also on Hanukkah. So now we've got oil and cheese, and I'm picturing, I don't know, fondue or something, cheese fondue. That would be a good Hanukkah thing. So this is what's going on, and this is Yehudis. So the question is, who is she? So I think Yochanan was also one of the Kohanim, or it may have even been one of the Maccabees. I didn't find out which Yochanan this was, but it was his daughter, not his sister. And her husband had died, and so she was a young widow. And she decided to help the Jewish people. She would infiltrate and go behind enemy lines and present herself as a spy against the Jewish people. And she was like very innocent, like nobody suspected. She was not suspected. And she gave enough information, and the general's name was like Holofernes, Holofornes, something like that. And she goes in and out of the enemy camp, and she's giving him information until he gains trust in her. And then she gives him like a final piece of information, and he wants to celebrate. And his idea of celebrating is to eat, drink, and make merry with her. And so she's like, yes, like, great, let's do this. And he starts to serve her food. She says, oh, I brought special food for the occasion. And she brought a very salty cheese. Well, when you eat salty things, one needs to drink. Now, a lot of military leaders, people, men of that time, whatever, spent a lot of time drunk. That was actually one of the things, like kings were drunk a lot. We know about Ahasuerus being drunk. It wasn't uncommon. They could afford it, and they were drunk. So he was a drinker anyway. And so she fed him this very salty cheese in a very romantic way, and then was giving him drink, and he was drinking a lot until he got completely inebriated and fell asleep. And when he fell asleep, she took his sword, which is not, we're thinking play sword. A sword is a very heavy thing. She was able to pull it out of its sheath without waking him, raise it above her head, and cut off his head. She cut off his head, she wrapped it in fabric, and she snuck out past everybody. Nobody thought anything of it, and she took it back to the Jewish people. When they saw that the head of the enemy was literally on their side, it was detached from him, they got strength, and she said, you need to you need to go attack now, because as soon as they realize that their leader is dead, they will flee and we'll win. And that's exactly what happened. So the Jews were motivated, and the Syrian Greeks, when they saw that their leader was dead and it was done in this way, they all ran off. And so she was the person who then turned the tide of the military battle. Who was she following? She was following someone else in history from the time of Deborah. And it's in the Haftorah on Shabbat Shirah, the Shabbos of song, where we read about Miriam's song in the Torah. And we read about Deborah, Devorah, and her battle with Barak, who she motivates them. And Deborah, in her song, references Yael. Yael is the person who did basically the same thing to Sisera, another general of an enemy of the Jewish people, who seeks refuge in her tent, thinking that she's friend when she is foe. And she gets him drunk also. In this case, she takes a tent pin and puts it through his head and kills him. So these are, I mean, I have to tell you, I know it's so totally gory. It's not so easy to do that. When we were with our grandson in Israel, we went to this woodworking place. We were trying to just put a nail through some wood. He was making like a little toolbox. Everybody was schwitzing. They were like trying to hammer this nail into wood. Okay, now with a hammer and nail in wood, those are like nails are designed to go into wood. Tent pins aren't really designed to do that, of going into cracking somebody's skull. So this is what Yael did, and Yael inspired Yehudis to do what she did. But she was the one who risked her life to go in, because it would have been very easy for her to have been found out and for her to lose courage. It's not every day. I mean, she's like this regular little Jewish girl, like what is Jewish woman. Most Jewish women are not exactly adept at swords and doing that kind of a horrific action. Even if you're motivated, they talk about, I'm not here to weigh in on whether people should have guns or not, but one of the reasons they say people shouldn't have guns is that unless you're extremely well trained, the chances of you being able to have the presence of mind to use it correctly and not end up hurting yourself or someone you love is slim, because it's not so easy to do. Oh, well, I would just go in and kill him. It's like, not so fast. People tend to flinch. And not to be able to carry it off. And then you're going to pick up this head and take it with you. And, she could have lost her lunch over at any one of these points of like, I don't think I can do this. But she did this, and she had the courage and to motivate the Jewish people. These are the two women who both initiated the war as well as kind of saved the troops when their energy was waning and their commitment was waning to keep on fighting. And that turned the tide of the war and for the Jewish people to be successful. So we say the Jewish women were in the miracle. It's not just that they benefited, like, oh yeah, that's nice miracle. I love to see those lights on the menorah relit. It's like, no, they were the ones who played such a pivotal role in making the whole thing happen. So now we can maybe understand why we would kind of turn around Jewish law for these circumstances. Like, no, they were in the miracle. They're obligated in those candles. They're obligated to light. And they also get the special recognition while those candles are lit that they have like menucha, that they have rest. It's like you worked and you rest and you deserve the rest. So this is Hanukkah time. Marla, you look like, did you have a comment?
It's just, it's amazing and really sad in the same breath, because I feel like we're not teaching about the strength of women, which we should have been learning in Cheder when we were young.
They didn't know.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. Yeah. And again, it's nothing malicious. And a lot of it is just when you have Hebrews, honestly, when you have Hebrew school, what did you have? Mine was from 4:30 to 6 after school. The teacher spent half the time trying to get us to shut up, honestly, and to sit down and pay attention.
Mrs. Holder, check it.
Okay, right. There's a reason we remember that, is because that's how they spend a lot of time with us.
Yeah.
And you go twice a week, and then Sunday school, and you're supposed to be learning Jewish history and Hebrew and all of these other things. I'm sorry, we're barely getting people in there to, first of all, and again, nothing against the teachers. The teachers were like my mother and me, and people like, what did we know? We didn't know. Also,
Mm-mm.
the resources, you know, it's in the Talmud, which is great. It's totally open. Judaism is totally good with strong women. I mean, these are the rabbis. This is Rashi. This is in the Talmud. This is totally good with strong women. Some of the stories, we have to admit, it's a little hard to tell children. It's like how we do not tell, even though it's straight up in the Megillah. Straight up in the Megillah, it says that King Ahasuerus, when he had his beauty pageant, what that beauty pageant was, not what we
Yeah.
present to our girls. It was,
No.
he tried them out sexually, each one. They would, it says they came at the night and they went home in the morning. Well, guess what that means? They weren't staying up and playing Scrabble. He was violating them. And then after that, they had to go to a harem for the rest of their lives and they were prisoners. They could never return to their families. That's not a beauty pageant. We have turned it in, we have diluted it, we have flattened it, and we present this as a nothing, you know, cute little thing. And it's almost like the more awesome it is, the more we have done, we have underrepresented what this is all about. So it's not anything intentional. And then it gets mixed in like, well, on one hand, it's hard to tell the story. You're going to tell this like to a third grade little girl? It's like, I don't think so. This is a very hard story to hear. You know, in the Torah, when it talks about the rape of Dinah, it's, you know, they focus on, like, kids know that story. Like, you know, my little grandchildren know, they know the story. And but the little girls learned that she was taken from her house and that she had to go be with a bad person, and that her brothers then defended her and rescued her. So that's about all you're going to really say about that. And that's appropriate. I think, you know, there is such a thing as age appropriate. The other thing is most of us stopped our Jewish education at our bat mitzvah, if we even lasted that long. So when were we supposed to learn all of this information exactly? So that's why we're here now, to fill in the rest of the story and to make sure that others know it. Nobody's trying to hide it, but it's gotten lost. It's just gotten lost. So now we have a beauty pageant, a costume parade for Purim, and we have spin the dreidel for Hanukkah, and we do not even focus on, when we say, oh, this was a miracle, and the purification that happened, we're talking about a purification at every level of the Jewish society, starting from the core, which was the women, and the stopping the violation of that. So it's a huge thing to know. And now you're obligated, because now once you know, you can't plead ignorance. Like, I didn't know. It's like, now you know. So people should know. So you may not want to tell the story exactly while you're eating latkes. It could turn people's stomachs, but there might be the right time to tell it and to get the information. Again, you can go on the Chabad website. I think the article is called Women at War, and it tells the story of, in more detail, about Yehudis, and it'll probably reference you back also to the story about Hannah and her actions too at the wedding. So that's interesting. The other thing we have to know that makes it challenging is that Judaism is an oral tradition with like cliff notes that are written down. And you are supposed to learn with people who can tell you the rest of the story. It's like being an apprentice. You can't really learn how to be a lawyer just by going to law school. You cannot learn how to be a doctor just by going to medical school and sitting in the classroom and reading the books. You have to see it in action, and you have to be able to be with people who are experts. The same is true of Judaism. You cannot get all the information from just what is written down. You have to be with somebody who can transmit the rest of the story to you. Otherwise, you end up, you know, I had a recipe for pea soup and all the ingredients were on there that somebody gave me except for peas. I'm like, this is your pea soup recipe, right? It's like, there's no peas. And well, that's a given. Like, I figured you knew, like, that of course there'd be peas in the pea soup recipe. I was just giving you the rest of the ingredients. So there are things that are assumed that you know, and there are things that need to be transmitted. So always ask more questions, and almost the more nothing something seems, the more there's very likely to be a lot more behind it that's waiting for us to discover and unfold. Marla.
I think when I light the candles, I'll be thinking of the rededication of women.
That's right. Absolutely. That's what it is. Rededication.
Spiritual, I mean,
That's right.
deeper
Rededicate the
meaning
women.
now. Mhm.
That's exactly right. And that purification, that purity is that the women are, because like the Jewish home is no better than the woman who is she is the home. And so that is what's happening with her is what determines really the quality of the Jewish home. So that's our story. So when we're rededicating and we're home and we're taking that time, because then somebody said, well, what am I supposed to do while I'm sitting there for 25 minutes? The truth is women usually have a very hard time sitting still, especially since it's usually at dinner time. And someone says like, well, who's supposed to be cleaning up from the mess from making the latkes? It's like, well, ask somebody else or wait, it'll stay, it'll keep. But to take that time, and maybe that time is like, how am I dedicating myself to being a Jewish woman? How am I growing as a Jewish woman? What needs to be purified? Is there something in my life as a Jewish woman that needs to be kind of taken out? It was very, very hard. And it was very much like American Western culture, but that's Greek. There's a lot of very attractive things about it. And the Jews got very confused and off track. They were so off track since that they had a gymnasium next to the Beit HaMikdash. And I don't know if this was exactly proximate, like next door, but basically what it said is they were trying to live both lives. And they ended up then doing neither well. So they just like, you can't do that. There's some things that you can take in and other things you can't. So we value the Greeks. We really do. There's halacha that says that the one other language that a Torah scroll can be written in is Greek. We don't do it, but Greek was all about beauty. And we appreciate beauty, but not when it's divorced from holiness. If it's not in the context and framework of holiness, it's always going to end up in a place of distortion. So that was really what was going on at Hanukkah. The other thing that's challenging about Hanukkah is the rest of the history of the Hasmoneans, the Hashmonaim, was not good. Those Maccabees, they ended up, the next generation were corrupt, which is like so bizarre. This whole focus on purity and doing everything right. And then it's like they fell into the trap and they usurped kingship. So we know we have very distinct lines. The tribe of Judah, Yehuda are kings, and the tribe of the Kohanim are from the tribe of Levi. When you have a Kohen who decides he's going to also be king, that's a bad thing. And there were assassinations and there were horrible things that happened. So the rabbis are already a little ambivalent about Hanukkah because it was not a complete success. It was a temporary success. But I have to say I'm inspired by that too. Like, you know what? You have to celebrate the successes you have, even if they're not complete and even if they're not final. Because who's to say? We don't know what's going to happen next. You think you haven't just think about in your work or in your personal life, you thought you accomplished something happened, and then it's undone and it unravels. The project gets scrapped, the building gets torn down, the people fall apart, or whatever it is, we don't know. So the rabbis are a little about Hanukkah because of the Hashmonaim. They really went off the wrong track. Etta.
I have a question about in the miracles that happened in the modern state of Israel, the 6-Day War, the 73 or 78, I forget, 67, yeah.
67,
why didn't they have a new holiday like Hanukkah?
They have, so it's interesting. So we have Yom HaAtzmaut, we have Yom Yerushalayim. So the day we do celebrate the new holiday of the reunification of Jerusalem, except we kind of blew that one too. Because what did Moshe Dayan say? We don't need the Temple Mount.
Right. Give it back.
Give it back to Jordan. It was like, you've got to be kidding. So we do celebrate it. It's like, okay, we do celebrate that. Yeah, we do celebrate it. And that's why this question is, Hallel is said on Yom Yerushalayim and Yom HaAtzmaut to thank God for the miracle that happened. So we do celebrate it. Yep, but it's not complete because, you know, the land of Israel is not exactly being run according to the Torah. It's being run according to a combination of British common law, Ottoman law, empire, something, and kind of a hodgepodge of stuff. So it's not being run according to the Torah. So there are people say, like, what are we celebrating? It's like I like the prayer that is said, you know, in many synagogues, that Israel is Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu. It's the first flowering of our redemption, but it's not the total redemption. But we celebrate flowering. I mean, when we celebrate that in, you know, a fruit tree, the first flower that you see, you celebrate that. So it's true. We're not done, but we are making progress, even at the same time when things are also going very poorly in many ways, but we're grateful for what we have. We are so grateful for what we have. So I think that that's a good message for us too, is, you know, I'm not sure if there's not, until Mashiach comes, there's not such a thing right now for us as a final win. We may win some battles, but the war hasn't been called yet. And win some and lose some, but to also be able to be in a place where we can celebrate what did work, even if it's just a moment in time, just a moment in time. So you just wonder how that happened. But, you know, human nature is human nature. And when people get power, there is just a tendency to go in the wrong direction with that. And that's what the Hashmonaim did. So, yes, very, very challenging, really challenging. But now we have more insight and information about our holiday of Hanukkah, and hopefully we can dedicate ourselves and be inspired, because I think what's also interesting is that just like Hannah was inspired and used the experience of Shimon and Levi fighting on behalf of Dinah, and she was inspired by that to call them out, and that Yehudis was inspired by Yael, and that we are inspired by people, but first we have to know about them. And having these women, now we have 4 women. We have Yael, we have Hannah, we have Shimon and Levi vis-a-vis Dinah, we have that scenario, and Yehudis to say, the Jewish women speak up. And the truth is the Jewish women do speak up. You know, Hadassah is, I think it's, Kathy, you know more, just being in Hadassah, the largest, I forget what it is, largest organization of women in the world. And it's like to speak up if they saw a problem and they stepped up to fix it. The same thing is true. The creation of the organizations that are designed to help communities are almost always led by Jewish women. Like, that's who we are. We're like, oh, what's her name? Frances Weisbart Jacobs. You know, her picture is in the Capitol in Denver. We are people who see the problem and take action. So the Jewish woman is always somebody who takes action, going back to Sarah, saying to Abraham, Ishmael and Hagar need to go out. Rebecca, Jacob needs the blessing. Rachel, I'm giving Leah the code. Miriam, Mom and Dad, you need to get back together and don't listen to Pharaoh. It's like, this is the Jewish people. Deborah, you need to fight, and you guys are all cowards, and I'm going to lead you, and you need to, you know, step up. So the Jewish woman is the person who's behind either inspiring others to step up and or taking action herself to do whatever is necessary. So we should be inspired by those people. And I'm sure you have women in your own family who in their own way did that, whether it was their own personal circumstances. You know, I think of my great grandmother, you know, her husband passed away when she was young. She remarried. She never learned how to read or write English, but she took in boarders, she cooked for people, she helped with the store, she did all of these things. Like, she did what was necessary to take care of her family. So it's not necessarily that you're, you know, in charge of the whole community, but you're in charge of your piece of it. And the women step up. Yes, Linda.
My brother and I were having a discussion, about what makes Judaism different. It was also about why we're hated. We'll skip that part.
Yeah, let's skip that part. Uh-huh.
And the decision we came to, or the thing that he brought up, which I thought was quite true, was we are not of another world. We are here to make this world better. And therefore, we always are the leaders. We always are the ones saying, we will not get our reward in the world to come. We will get our reward by what we do today. So that gives truth to everything you said.
Thank you. So thank you. And just one little bit on that, Linda, is actually just one little tiny modification. Our reward for what we do does come in the world to come. It says there is no reward or punishment in this world, because you see wonderful people having terrible things happen to them. That's not their reward or their punishment. We have blessings and curses in this world, but we do not have reward and punishment. What we do have that I think you're really speaking to is God gave us things to do in this world. Our job is to create heaven on earth. It says, when we talk about making this world a place where God can dwell, that's basically what the Beit HaMikdash was. It means making it a place that is a holy place, that on all levels, our relationships with one another, our relationship with the planet, our relationship with God, all of it is meant to be comprehensive and unified. That's what we're doing. That's why we have a land where the land of Israel, where we implement what's supposed to be the model of a perfect society. We say, this is what it looks like. We're supposed to be like the incubator people, not just to enjoy it for ourselves, but to be a model for everybody else. And so we act here, and we have been, it's like it's been emblazoned in our hearts, minds, and souls. We are the people who are looking to perfect the world, because that is God's work. And that's the ultimate tikkun olam, l'taken olam v'malchut Shaddai, is to perfect the world under the kingship of God. And when we make this world godly, then we have made God's world. And that's what we're here to do. And the mitzvot are all designed to make sure that we're on track in all realms of our life, not just one. You can't say, well, I just do the mitzvot between man and man, or I just do the mitzvot between man and God, or I just do the things that have to do with me, myself, and I. It has to be comprehensive. It has to be unified. That's our goal. So you're absolutely right. And that makes us people of action, because it's like Hillel, if I'm only for myself, what am I? And if I'm only for myself, what am I? I'm sorry, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? And if I'm only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? It's like, no, go. Life is short. The task is great. And it says, and the taskmaster is demanding, meaning God. It's like, we're accountable. We are very accountable. And the Jewish people feel accountable. It doesn't always get manifested in exactly the best way, but Jewish people take action. That's just who we are. So thank God Hashem should purify all of our actions, purify our hearts, so that we're doing the right things in the right way at the right time with the right people, and that we have clarity, and that we should gaze at those Hanukkah lights for those 25 minutes that we are gifted with and be inspired, because it says looking at the light is supposed to bring clarity. Normally, the preferred is olive oil. It says oil in itself is always a symbol of wisdom. It talks about the people of Tekoa in Israel, which our friends Ted and Jane Brandt now live in Tekoa, were very smart, is that on account of the oil, the olive oil that they ate, the ultimate Mediterranean diet, which made them very wise. So it says we are become wise even from looking at the flames and literally being enlightened. That's what it means. But it's an enlightenment that embodies God's will for us in this world and how to make it the best place possible. So I want to wish you a happy Hanukkah, happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you not for the next 2 weeks, but beginning of December. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful celebration. And hopefully this year, this holiday will be anything but a minor holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ellen?
Yes, Linda.
I just wanted to say I knew about the world to come, but what we were discussing was, yeah, you will be rewarded there,